Ladies and gentlemen, I have a confession, and this confession is desperation is the ultimate form of disrespect, especially when it comes to anything creative related, especially when it comes to any project that we got going on, coming up with new ideas, taking the next step in our creative careers and creative journeys. Desperation is the one thing that will fucking set you back 20 miles, 20,000 miles, 100,000 miles back compared to if you didn't. My name is Young Waves, and ladies and gentlemen, this is a topic of conversation that I feel like has been covered a lot, but like the real root of it, the real reasoning as to why desperation is a real thing in the first place isn't really talked about enough. So as somebody who has been in creative spaces surrounded by people that have been very successful in the music industry and YouTubers as well, I've seen my fair share of desperation, folks, ladies and gentlemen. I was a victim to it as well. I was definitely the type of person to be hella desperate when it came to shit, even trying to make progress on a project or shit, trying to make more connections or make more moves or anything like that. And let me tell you this, it doesn't have a good ending. Sure, the work may be done, but was it the best that it could be? Because anytime that we move desperately when it comes to putting a project together, we're probably 9 times out of 10 going to cut corners that takes away from the quality of the work, just for the sake of getting it done. So just for the sake of the project needs to be that we need to move the fuck on. You know, I'm not saying stay stuck on something, but in the way that how we do it, desperation and doing things from a place of fear, which is all it really is. Desperation is just another form of fear. It's a reaction to whatever sort of void that we have within us that we haven't really addressed or talked about. So we move in a way to where we cut a good amount of the essentials that in the tools and forget about the tools that help us grow. And instead we get something a little bit more lackluster, and just for the sake of getting money, just for the sake of getting another opportunity, just for the sake of making some increment of progress when we create from that state. So in this video, we are going to talk about what desperation is, the meaning, the origin behind it, how it came from our ancestors, and the process on what we can do when we are in a desperate state, and how we can revise it and rewrite it to the point to where our natural actions and our natural state is not one of desperation, but one of love, effortlessness, and flow. My name is Young Waves, and let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so let me take it back a bit. Desperation is basically an unsolved trauma that you have never fully processed. Okay, so yes, that's exactly what the fuck it is. So think about it like this. If you ever gone through anything in life, or something in particular that made you feel really uncomfortable, or that stimulated a very intense negative reaction growing up, then more likely than not, that's the thing that ended up causing you to rely on desperation as a tactic for survival. Speaking of survival, because desperation is a survival paradigm, or it's a survival instinct, it's something that's been encoded within us for thousands of years. So when we go back to the ancient times, like hunter-gatherer days, when human beings lived in tribes and we had to do whatever we could to survive to the next day, we had to be desperate in order to kill our prey. We had to be desperate in order to get new land, to set up living situations and circumstances regardless of what the weather is looking like. Like, we had to move in a way that required a lot of intensity, a lot of that was ran from like a lot of fear, because obviously back then nobody understood what the fuck trauma was. Nobody knows what PTSD is. Like, we didn't have the tools to understand ourselves to the level that we do today. So we had to rely on these survivalistic things, and coming from a mental space of we either like we are going to do this or we're going to die trying. And because of that, that's something that's been encoded in our DNA, and something that's been passed on from generation to generation, even to this day. Like, it may not be as strong, but it's still in there. And because of that fact, and the modern society that we live in today, like it can still have an influence on us if we go through something that like sparks up those survival instincts again. Think about it like this. Like, say that you have a speech at school, or you end up like you're at a sporting event, or you're playing a game in front of a crowd or something like that, and then you end up fucking up really bad. You end up doing really, really, really bad. You get embarrassed, and everybody starts laughing at you, clowning at you, saying that you're not good enough, this, and that. For some, like, they could use it as motivation, but a good amount of people would rely after the fact on making sure that something like that never happens again, because we attribute that negative thing no differently from something going wrong to our primal days. If, let's say, like, we didn't catch the food, we didn't hunt our prey down, and then we had no choice but to starve for the next night. Whatever that traumatic event was is no different from how our ancestors like kind of experienced that. So it's basically a reactivation of something that is long ancient. So because of that fact, like, whenever we go through that traumatic experience, we don't fully process it. And desperation is usually a reaction out of fear, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of like shit being seen, fear of failure, to name a few. And as a result of that, we end up taking some sort of unnecessary action to fill that void and cover up whatever the fuck that shitty ass mess is. And as a result of that, we end up taking actions that may seem very disrespectful, not to just the people around us, but to ourselves. For example, like whenever you're working on a project or something like that, and let's just say you accept a client that maybe they might be giving you some good money, but the song is fucking terrible. It's horrible, and you're doing whatever the fuck you can to get on to the next step. See, because you weren't upfront and then you didn't set, like, your boundaries in the beginning and say and understand your worth when it comes, and your integrity when it comes to being an artist and creative, like, you're literally going through an unpleasant experience that you chose. But think about it like this: because of that desperation and whatever that traumatic thing was, like, that influenced you to do this thing and make you go through this uncomfortable circumstance and situation again, as a result of covering up whatever the hell you went through that you kind of like buried down deep beneath. It's kind of a fucking double-edged sword, you know what I mean? Like, sure, you're making a bread, but you're also like humiliating yourself in the process of that. So as a result of that, like, you end up cutting corners, you end up like maybe the business relationship ends up dissolving because it's just a one and done. It's just like whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Like, you're being disrespectful to yourself as a creative, and you're also being disrespectful to the client that you're working with because you're not being upfront and honest, and you're being disrespectful to the craft because you're taking shortcuts, and you're probably not going to go all in, because like anytime that we're not fully passionate about something that we're working on, then shit, like, the quality ain't gonna be as good, bro. No matter how hard you try. You could try your hardest. You could go 110, 150% all effort. It's still not gonna hit the same, because you're not in love with the process. You're not in love with the game. You're not feeling it the way that any artist that is really in love with what they're doing would feel. And when you have access to that love and that flow and those feelings, like, you start getting all sorts of crazy ideas. But when you rely on desperation, that means you're relying on limitation. You're relying on the without instead of having it. Because artists, bro, like, there are some who end up like making the things that they want and still getting the business relationships that they want as well, and making the money that they want. It's not a widely discussed topic, but it is a possibility. Oh shit, like, yeah, they're not, it's because they're gifted, they're talented. Bro, you're fucking talented too. Can you give yourself that credit first? Give yourself the fucking credit that, like, yeah, nah, I got it just like that. But anyways, we're going to get to the point. We're going to get there, because that's something that we don't innately have. It's something that, like, that confidence is either built within us from our parents, and if we didn't have people like surrounding us when we were younger to instill that in us, then we kind of have to start from scratch, unfortunately. So, which comes into the next part. I just explained pretty much what desperation was and how it can influence us with some examples. Now we're going to get into the practical application on what we can fucking do about it, because desperation is no more than an expressed trauma. Speaking of trauma, we're going to get into, it's either a 3 or 4 step process. I'm still determining what it fully is, but we're going to take a look back at ourselves, because one of the greatest books you can ever read is on the previous chapters of you. And to understand where we come from, we can fully understand on how we can move forward. So think back before we get into it, to a moment to where you felt like you weren't good enough, because usually desperation, especially when it comes to creativity, revolves around that. Think back to a moment to where you felt like you were not good enough at all, or where you embarrassed yourself and where people clowned on you. And whatever the most negative, intense experience was that stemmed from that, that's one of the key traumas that has led you to start moving desperately without you even realizing it. Because think of those traumatic moments as the puppeteer that's kind of like running the show. Because these traumatic experiences and moments, they have such a strong negative charge that impresses on our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is the gateway to our intuition. It's the gateway to our understanding, and basically call it like our sixth sense, or you could call it your connection with God, with Allah, whatever religion you follow. It's literally all a reflection of the same thing. Our subconscious mind is no different from our coding, no different from the things that we were programmed with when we were younger, when it comes to how we move in life. So as a result of the things that we may have experienced, that our subconscious mind ends up picking up whatever it is that like negatively influenced us so deeply in the beginning that it had to create a protection mechanism for us to not experience that again. There's a book by I forgot the author's name, but it's called Waking the Tiger and Healing Trauma, where a man who is a war vet from the Vietnam War, I believe, every year would consistently recreate the circumstances of how one of his squad mates died. He would do it by robbing a bank, or not robbing a bank, by robbing a convenience store on the exact day that his friend ended up passing away in the war. And he did that so he can get in a standoff with the police, because his mind had no other option but to recreate it so he can fully escape and get out of it. It kept happening over and over again, and eventually it got to the point to where the people ended up realizing what was going on, and they gave him the chance to fully realize it without hurting anybody. I believe, I don't remember exactly what happened. I think they somehow gave him a fake prop gun or something like that, and he basically became the hero and saved the day, because he was able to change whatever that traumatic event was externally. It was able to be rewired in his mind internally, and then he was able to finally let go and release whatever that traumatic event was. But in this process, we're not going to necessarily have to do all those extra steps. We're going to do it within our imagination, because our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. It sees it all as the same thing. So we're going to cultivate our imagination to basically recreate whatever that traumatic experience was in our minds, so that we can finally release it, for one, and then re-imprint it with something much better that gives us a new foundation to build on top of. So step 1 is find the most negatively intense experience when it comes to creating, and understand where that fear is and where it's coming from. It may take a little while, 5, 10, 20 minutes. As soon as you find whatever that particular experience was, and you're feeling shit in your body, you're feeling strained, you're feeling like fuck, like you have to tense up and protect yourself, that's how you know you got the one. So get into a quiet space, sit down, relax, stay calm, and reinsert yourself into whatever that particular experience was. And once you do that, then fully feel it. Fully feel the strain, feel the negativity, feel all of it, because we're finally giving ourselves the chance to fully process it in our body to the point to where we neutralize it and it doesn't have that strong negative charge and influence on us. So once we do that, like, sit it with it for as long as you need to. And then when you start feeling shifts in your head, in your heart, when you start feeling some sort of like ease, release, like, it's different for everybody, but for me personally, like when I feel the negative charge and the negative emotions start fading away, then that's how I know like something is happening. And you're gonna feel a little bit of residue after the fact. It's just literally that those last like flickers, those embers of whatever that negative experience was, just fully fading. Don't bear that no mind. It's okay. It's gonna go away eventually. So once you've like, because that's the process of neutralization. Once we've neutralized whatever that negative intense experience was, then we're gonna get into the next step of changing the definition, changing the meaning, replacing it with something much more positive, so that our subconscious mind basically runs that program instead of the negative one. We're upgrading from Windows XP to Windows 11, essentially. That's what's happening. So once we have neutralized it, give yourself a couple of minutes. When you feel like you're in a mindset or in a state to where you can think straight again, then we can cook. So once you've neutralized it, give yourself a little bit of space, you can think straight again. What you want to do is change the meaning of whatever that memory gave you. So let's just say like a speech that went wrong, or you performed bad in the sporting event, like playing a game or something like that. Change how it ended and give it a new ending. Give yourself a new ending. It may not make sense at all. Like, most things in life don't make fucking sense. This is no different from that. So why not give it a shot? You never know. You know what I mean? So give yourself a new meaning, and like something that will help you feel stimulating positive emotions. So let's just say like the speech went well and you got a standing ovation. Extract that to whatever experience that was for you. Do that, and then loop it over and over and over again in a quiet space. Like, relax, get into a calm meditative state, and loop whatever that particular positive experience was over and over and over and over again until you start feeling a little bit of strain in your mind, because that means that your mind would have accepted this new meaning. So once you consistently do that, then you can give yourself a break and take yourself out of it. That means we've completely rewired our internal meaning when it comes to creation, if we extract it from that particular experience. And you can do this for other things as well, but I'll make more videos depending on the topic. So if you guys have any ideas, feel free to let me know in the comments. But the third step would just be maintenance. So after we've done the first two, the third step, like, life is going to throw shit at us that's going to kind of like throw us off, you know, and things aren't going to be perfect. There might be a moment to where you might fall back into that old shit every once in a while, you know what I'm saying? Like, we just set the new foundation, but we still have to put in the reps to solidify it. So if life throws something at you that may completely catch you off guard, say a bill that's due or whatever the fuck, like whatever, or even when it comes to our creative work, ask yourself the question, how would the version of me that's in my that's in my goal state, that's in my desired state, the version of me that is actually like creating all the shit that he wants, how would he respond? And when you do that and you train your muscle and you train your mind to do that over and over and over again, you start creating space from the negative experience and the circumstance. And then you start giving yourself the opportunity to see it from the place of that new definition. Because it's been inserted there already, you're giving that an opportunity and space to basically solidify itself. And do that over and over and over again. And eventually it's going to feel like water flowing. It's going to feel normal and natural. And when you don't have to really think about it anymore, then that's when you know desperation has been cleared out from your system. It may take a little bit of time, but just be diligent, stay patient, stay calm with it. Because at the end of the day, this is your journey, this is your life. And who says that we don't have to be in control of our emotions? So, yeah, that's all I got for today. And if you guys have any questions, comments, leave them in the comments. Anyways, it's been real. Peace.